G'day boys and girls, women and men, ladies and gentlemen, lads and ladettes. Here it is, the 40 volt rear handle chainsaw. This has been one of the most requested reviews I've ever had, although a lot of you don't want to see a 40 volt chainsaw, eh? You want to see a 40 times 2, an 80 volt chainsaw, and I'm sure that will probably happen one day, but you've got to start with the 40 volt ones first, right? Makes sense. So, here she is. This is the UC013G 450mm bar chainsaw from Makita. Now, something I've noticed with the 40 volt ranges, there seems to be different blade sizes on certain things, different guard sizes, all sorts of different just little tweaks between countries with these tools, and they just got slightly different model numbers. So you may get this saw somewhere else in the world with a different number, you know, a 1.4 instead of a 1.3, that sort of thing. And it'll have a different bar on it. You might get one that only has a 350 or a 400. The 40 volt top handled chainsaw. Now this has a bar length of 350, but in some parts of the world, in Australia and the UK for instance, I think they released the 03 with a shorter bar, only got the 250 on it. Some people might get a 300. It depends on what the local Makita agents think are best for your region of the world. Thankfully in this part of the world they're going with big is better, so this is the longest that this one is rated for, and this is the longest that this one is rated for. We also got the 270mm blade on the HS011G circular saw, when a lot of the world only got the 260mm blade. Now you may have already noticed that I have used this saw. Look at those nice big chips and plenty of cookies. Now the first thing I noticed is when you pick it up, she's pretty heavy. She's a lot heavier than the 18x2 version. She's also quite a bit wider in the hips here. Why is it so much heavier? You'd think it would basically be the same saw, just redesigned to take a 40 volt battery. Well, no, they have changed quite a bit with this tool. So here we have steel. So the handle's steel. On the 18x2, it's plastic. On the front we have the steel bucking spikes here, but they're surrounded by this painted grey section here, which is actually magnesium, and it goes around the front here. We've got two nuts holding the cover on here and keeping your bar nice and tight, and that is quite different from the 18x2, which has this tool-free method of changing everything. So you can undo it, take it off like so, and you've also got the tensioning here, so loosen this off, tension it, all without having to remove anything. No having to get a spanner, don't have to take the cover off. Nice and easy. I think a few too many people might have broken that though, and so they've gone back to something a bit more solid, just nuts. And you'll have to carry a spanner around with you, like most chainsaws. They do now make the 18x2 with the captive nuts like the 40 volt has here, and so there's now 6 different versions of this tool. You can get it with or without this in 300, 350 and 400mm bars, or 12, 14, 16 inches. This, I can feel, is just so much lighter. But like I say, it's all plastic. There's no metal on this apart from the bucking spike on the front. The construction is quite different to the 40 volt. It of course has all the usual things a chainsaw has. A handle, if that's forward, it's a brake, your tool won't start. That's a safety device for kickbacks. Variable speed trigger. When it comes to the trigger area, how long does this light stay on for? 5 seconds is how long it stays on for. I timed it with the 18x2 as well, also 5 seconds. 40 volt top handle, also 5 seconds. But turn it on, push that down, and it'll stay on indefinitely, it seems. So when you're using it, as long as you keep your hand on like that, and then just pull the trigger when you want to, you'll be all good. If you hold your finger a long time on the button, it does not have an extra torque mode like the small 18 volt ones and that do. Neither of these 40 volt ones have the extra torque mode, which is good. I never used it on the other ones anyway. As you can see, the batteries go inside, they're fully encased, although this bit almost looks like an add-on, but it's probably just due to the fact that you can't mold that all in the one piece very easily. It does kind of look like it can come off, but I haven't worked out a way to actually get it off. Maybe you can take it off from the inside, I'm not sure. But it fits an 8 amp hour battery in here, no problem, but there is potential to remove that maybe and put an even bigger battery in there. I don't know if they're going to make any bigger than the 8. Let's chuck the 8 in there so you can see what it looks like. So the 8 is pretty tight in there, and there's a hole in the bottom, so if any water or anything gets in there, you'll be all good. This tool is IPX4 rated, I do believe, so she's pretty good for water and dust. To get to the bar oil, you can pull this up and turn it, or if you can't quite get it open for whatever reason, you can push this and up it pops, and then you can turn her open. Kind of only a problem if it happened to stop behind this little guard on the front here. Now Makita say this is the equivalent of a 42cc petrol chainsaw, and it has a chain speed of 25.5 meters a second. The 40 volt top handle has a chain speed of 24.8 meters per second, so not much slower, only what, 700 millimeters per second. And the 36, the 18x2, runs at 20 meters per second, or just over 20% slower than the speed of the new 40 volt rear handle. I'll tell you one last thing, then we'll go put these three up against each other. The 40 volt top handle weighs 3.8 kgs. The 18x2 rear handle weighs 4.2 kgs. This is going to be slightly different though depending on the length of your bar. With the 350 bar, it weighs 4.2. And this sucker here, the new one, weighs 5.14 kgs. So there's an extra kg on the 40 volt than there is over the 18x2. Let's go cut up some logs now and just see how quick they are. What is the difference between these tools? This is also the point where you can start complaining down in the comments about how sharp you think the chains are. This block of wood is about 400 wide, so there's not a lot of blade going to be sticking out, but let's see how good she goes. Just going to try that with the 18x2. I know it's got a shorter blade, but now that is one of the hardest cuts you can do with a chainsaw, cutting directly into the end grain like that. Normally you would cut across the grain like that. That's a much easier cut for the saw and much quicker. for any saw. What I was doing there was sort of the equivalent of a rip cut with a circular saw. Let's just slice across here this way and see how quick it goes. Much quicker and easier. She's pretty warm, mid 60s, 64 degrees Celsius, 146 Fahrenheit, but it's been working pretty hard over the last quarter of an hour. Stall test time. Chuck the 2 amp hour battery on here just to see how it handles. Look at that camera. Wow, look at that. There was a brand new battery I just showed you, right? 1 and a bit cuts and it's freaked out. I'd say it's overheating rather than flat. But look, can't use it, red light flashing. That's interesting. You're gonna need the big batteries for this puppy. Did think it was gonna be a bit much for this poor little battery. Pretty certain though it will be still charged. I'll just go and check it. Look at that, it's still showing fully charged. 50 degrees Celsius though, it's shot up pretty fast in the temperature department. I think it's just overloaded, 39.1 volts. This poor little battery has 10 cells to draw the power from, whereas the F batteries, the 5 amp and the 8 amp, have 20. People often ask me what the F stands for in the battery number. I think it's because they're the ones with double cells. But what the F means, I don't know. I'll have to ask someone in Japan, I guess. But there's only 2 batteries that have the F so far, the 5 and the 8, and they are both 20 cell batteries. And they are the ones Makita recommend for this chainsaw. And that's why. If I go chuck this on the charger for a second, it'll probably reset itself. And look at that, I stuck it on the charger for about 5 seconds and back to fully charged. So, I'm not going to put it on there again because it's not going to be too good for the life of this battery. Now, this is, remember, the equivalent of only a 4 amp hour 18 volt battery. So it's asking a lot to run that 36 volt massive chainsaw. How about a freshly charged 4 amp hour battery? This is the largest battery that Makita make that has the 10 cells in it, but they are 21700s rather than 18650s like the 5 amp hour battery. So let's just see how well this does, whether it can handle it or not. It's not an F battery, 10 cells only. Doesn't seem to be having the same problem. Oh, but we are down a bar already after those 2 cuts. This is just under 300, I'd say, about 270. This 4 amp hour is getting pretty toasty inside. 5 amp hour only got to 64, the 8 amp hour got to 57, and we're up to 82 on this one. Half as many cells, remember. So another battery flattened. How many cuts do you get out of these things? Well, it's always really hard to tell with this sort of tool because yeah, every cut's different. Look at all the different sizes and stuff we've got around the place. But I've gone through a 4, a 5 and an 8 amp hour battery doing that. Now some of these cuts were pretty evil cuts because making a video and stuff, so they are cuts like this which are not cross cuts but like rip cuts. Done quite a few of those just to test it out, and that drains the juice much quicker than a cross cut. And as well as that, a lot of these are pretty big, like that there, that's a foot across. See, there's my foot, look at that, bang, foot across. So there's some pretty big stuff here. This was an old willow tree that was growing next door. So some of you will go, oh, you should have done it on Australian hardwood. Well, yeah, you know. So that's about the pile, roughly, I would say, that I cut with these saws. And then I've been playing with the 40 volt and done all of what you see there with a 4 or 5 and an 8 amp hour battery. So you're going to go through the juice with this thing. It's pretty power hungry. And confession time, Makita are going to be happy to hear this. I hit a nail, would you believe it? In amongst all that, there was a piece that had a 4-inch nail in it that the neighbours banged into the tree donkeys years ago, and I happened to cut right into it. So the chain got a little bit munted. I tidied it up the best I could with a grinder and a file, and yeah, but the teeth got a bit bent in, some of them, and a bit, yeah, bit of a bugger. But I sharpened it up again the best I could and carried on. But that will have affected it. It's not cutting as nice as it was. So yeah, that's going to suck up more juice as well. A blunt chain uses so much power, trust me. Having a nice sharp chain, your batteries are going to last a lot longer. But it's been a fun day today. Nothing I love more than testing chainsaws. We'll go back inside and talk about stuff, eh? And what is this stuck in here, man? Jesus. Our neighbour was a nutcase. Thankfully he's gone now. But he used to fire all sorts of things. Obviously at this tree. It's pretty deep in there. Ouch. Yeah, so I've got to watch out for stuff like that when I'm cutting a tree. You know, normally when you're cutting down a tree and chopping up a tree, you don't have to worry about hitting metal. But, damn it. So there we have it. That is the new Makita 40 volt rear handle chainsaw. The first Makita 40 volt rear handle chainsaw. I'm sure there'll be more in the future. And it may even have another battery on the side at some point. It cuts smooth, it cuts quick. It's got greater capacity at cutting than the 18x2. It cuts about 20% faster than the 18x2, which makes sense. The chain's going 20% faster for one thing. So what you get with this over the 18x2 is a faster saw and a saw with a greater cutting capacity, as well as being a better built, tougher feeling chainsaw. Feels a lot more like a petrol chainsaw than the 18x2 did. It still stalls roughly the same as the 18x2. The 40 volt top handle feels like it stalls less, but it's just harder to get the leverage that you do with one of these. These saws are designed to do the work for you, sort of thing. With a top handle one, you've got to push down on it a lot more. With this, you've got that sort of lever with having your hand at the back of the saw. Sort of creates a fulcrum and it just goes down. Whereas, yeah, the top handle, like I say, you've got to push down on it. You're doing a lot more work and it's a bit more exhausting than this, although it is a lot lighter than this. Is it worth you replacing your 18x2? Well, that'll be up to you. Like I say, you can cut bigger logs and you can cut them 20% quicker. And you only need half as many batteries. So let's end by opening up the cover here and taking a quick look inside. The screw to tension your chain is in here, but you will of course need to release the nuts first. So give that a bit of a twist, give that a bit of a twist, and then you can loosen or tighten your chain. Give it a little bit of a tweak there, Yeah, but it was pretty good anyway. Back it off a tiny bit. But let's take a quick look inside here. And there she is, nothing to it. Looks like every other chainsaw basically, and there's not too much gunk in there, which is surprising with all the cutting I've been doing. So that's good. Chain deflector on the front here for when it comes off the bar. Thanks for watching another one. Make sure you're subscribed, and if you want to know what that is, well, you'll have to go have a look on Patreon. See you on another video shortly. What am I going to do with all these lumberjack frisbees?